Welcome to this week's episode of Bear Archery's Hunting 101 podcast presented by my good friends over at ScentLock. Guys, Blocker Outdoors, which is another company owned by Nexus, kind of more of the Western big game hunting line from Nexus. They just released one of my favorite products to ever be released, which is the new Verse Pant. Guys, you have to check it out. It's going to be a phenomenal everyday pant, but it's also going to be phenomenal for anybody who goes outdoors, whether you're checking cameras, whether you're hanging sets, or whether you're headed in the mountains to chase elk. Check out the Verse Pant because you are going to want to get you a couple pairs for this fall. Guys, this week I am joined by Dylan Dowson, who is the Western Big Game Marketing Director at Onyx Maps, Onyx Hunt, whatever you know them as, you definitely know Onyx. But guys, me and Dylan, we talk about our shared love for bear hunting, our shared addiction for bear hunting. We also give you some ideas and tips and tricks on how to field judge bears. It can be one of the most difficult big game animals to field judge. So we help you kind of better understand how to field judge bears and get ready for if you have a fall bear tag in your pocket. But the meat of this episode, we talk about preseason scouting and last minute scouting, using our maps and how we're gonna utilize those maps for our last minute scouting. Guys, we also talk about just early season, preseason prep, and kind of pushing your limits, making yourself get out of what is comfortable and becoming more comfortable being uncomfortable. So many times in hunting, we're put in situations that are uncomfortable. So me and Dylan just talk about, getting out of our comfort zone, whether it's how we're shooting, what we're wearing, or pushing ourselves physically before and after we shoot, just kind of pushing ourselves out of what's comfortable so that when we get in those hunting situations and things get a little uncomfortable, it's not a shell shock. Guys, whether you're on your way to elk camp, whether you're getting ready for an early season whitetail hunt, I hope that you'll find some inspiration, some tips and tricks in this episode on how to get ready for this upcoming season. But nonetheless, I hope that you enjoy it.
Welcome to Bear Archery's Hunting 101 podcast, where hunters new and old come to learn and find inspiration from stories of hunts gone by. Everyone is welcome to enjoy the outdoor way of life, and there is no better time to start than right now. So let's head into the great outdoors with your host, Dylan Ray.
Guys, I'm an arrow junkie. I love arrows. And I have found a fondness for deer crossing archery. Everybody makes a good arrow. I'm not saying that anybody out there makes a bad arrow. But what really sets deer crossing archery apart is when I call them, I'm going to get, the owner on the phone. I'm going to get the guy that's building my arrows on the phone, and they're going to walk me through a complete custom build. They're not shipping me a box of arrows that they ship out to everybody. I'm going to pick my knot colors, my fletching colors, my wrap colors, the fletching configuration I want on the arrows. Not only that, I'm going to walk him through my setup. I'm going to walk him through what I'm looking to get out of the setup. I'm going to tell him total arrow length I want to be hitting, total arrow weight I want to be hitting, total insert-outsert weight I want to be hitting, FOC, and he's going to custom build a set of arrows and send them to me. My arrows aren't going to be best for you. Your arrows aren't going to be best for me. We need custom arrows. Deer Crossing Archery builds those arrows custom for you, and they always perform. Their silencer shaft is my favorite arrow on planet Earth. I've shot 40-plus animals with that arrow. It always performs. It always blows through the animal. I always get great penetration. It's a micro-diameter shaft. They do have a full line of shafts. The new Rupture arrow is a phenomenal arrow. I shot a deer with it this year in Missouri. I love their arrows. Guys, I would highly encourage you to check out Deer Crossing Archery because you don't have to go to a box store and buy a set of arrows that are just made from the factory. You can get arrows custom made for you that are going to work best for you and your setup. Guys, use code HUNTING101 to get a discount at Deer Crossing Archery. I would highly encourage you to check them out. They are phenomenal. All right, Dylan. So where are you at in the world right now?
So I'm currently sitting in my home office in western Montana, just outside of Missoula.
Very cool, man. Very cool. Montana is one of the, well, not one. It's my favorite place I've ever been. I mean, it's just absolutely gorgeous, dude.
Keep it a secret.
Like, I never went anywhere in Montana where I was like, oh, this isn't that pretty. It's just like, holy crap.
Yeah. No, I've been fortunate. I was born and raised in Montana. So Montana is the only state I've ever lived in. Now I did grow up in eastern Montana, about 20 miles from the North Dakota border. And then now I'm on pretty much the far west end of Montana. So I have moved across the state. So it's about a 8 to 9 hour drive, quote unquote, home where I'm from. But, yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's surreal. And, once in a while I have to remind myself how blessed we are to live here for just how many tags you can get and how long the seasons are and so on and so forth. And I don't really realize it until I start talking to other folks. And it's like, sometimes that's not the norm.
Until you come to Kansas and you're like, God, this place sucks, dude. Like, what is there here? No,
I've been in Kansas a couple of times.
People like come from Colorado and they're like, dude, this is crazy cool out here, man. I'm like, why? And they're like, you can see forever. It's not like this at home. Sometimes you take for granted, like, there is something special about where I live. Like, the fact that it is so flat, like, that's what makes Kansas special. And people come from Montana and Idaho and they're like, holy cow, dude, this is so cool. We don't get this where we're from. And sometimes you got to remind yourself, like, it's special where I live too. I want to come to Montana to chase elk, but people from Montana want to come kill big whitetails in Kansas. Like, there's something special that every place has to offer.
Yeah, no, certainly there really is. And the more that I travel for, some out of state hunts and just checking out new parts of the country, the more I realize that. So it's, that statement you said is true. I'm from eastern Montana again, and I couldn't wait to get to the mountains. And now that I'm in the mountains, I kind of miss that side of the state. So
yeah,
it's pretty cool. There's a lot of diversity.
Now, what all do you have planned this year? What all tags you got? Where all you hunting at?
Yeah, so I've got, again, Montana, man, we have a lot of seasons. Got a lot of tags, long seasons. So mostly Montana stuff. Archery elk will kick off first part of September and then rolls until like middle of October. And then we have a 5-day period where you're in between seasons, and then rifle will kick off right after that. So long seasons here, but I've got Montana. Archery elk is up first. So I'm really excited to do that one. I mean, that's kind of one of my favorite ones every year. It's like archery elk and rifle mule deer are my two kind of really big ones. So we got that, and then I think I'm going to end up over in Oregon for a blacktail hunt in November, which will be cool because I've hunted blacktail, but only up in Alaska. We did Kodiak Island a few years back, but I've never been to the Oregon coast or the coast over there for blacktail. So I think I got that. And then in January, my dad and I are going to go do an aoudad hunt in Texas, which will be really cool. Never hunted aoudad or in Texas, so that'll be fun.
You've never hunted in Texas,
never done
period? Oh my gosh, dude.
Nope.
I can't wait to hear your feedback from that. Texas is like it's really hard to say my favorite place to hunt because everywhere you go, it's like, man, crap, that was so cool. Because again, everywhere has something to offer. But Texas, dude, it's like if you want to hunt in a different country or feel like you're on a different planet, Texas will do that for you. Like, it's just crazy, man, what all. And maybe more so than anywhere else, like Texas has so much different terrain and different, you could be hunting in the desert, you could be hunting in the Davis Mountains, you could be hunting, in eastern Texas and be like in the big and woods. And I mean, it's just, Texas is really cool, man. I love hunting Texas.
Yeah.
Which is
that's cool. I'm excited to go down there.
I just brought up, you started talking about how many seasons you have and how many tags you have. And on your website, onxmaps.com, I Google best states to hunt in, and you guys have an article on that. Not best states to hunt in. I Googled state with the most big game tags. you guys have an article on that very topic, which is cool. And guys, I just want to mention that's part of what I love about Onyx is they're not just a mapping company, they're a plethora of knowledge. And if you guys listen to this podcast at all, those are my favorite companies, the companies that give you information, which is why I love Onyx. I Google this, they're the ones that pop up as the top answer. So, obviously Alaska has the most big game tags. Best state for really big game. You know what shocks me on this one is Arkansas is best for black bears. You guys put that on there. That surprises me.
Yeah, and I think all of that, it's best is like a very relative term, right? So depending on who wrote
Right,
the
for sure.
article and what research they did and stuff, it's a very, that's definitely not like a hard and definitive answer on that stuff. It's like more opinion based than anything, and probably just trying to diversify across the country a little bit. But yeah, no, honestly, I haven't even read the article that you're referring to there, so that's funny.
Well, and I had my suspicions, but in the article it says Clay Newcomb, which he's made it famous. But I'll tell you what, I grew up about 10 minutes from Clay, and what fascinates me, what blows my mind is I grew up right there in bear country, and I never one time bear hunted as a kid growing up. Never even crossed my mind, never considered it, never thought about it. Then I moved to Kansas, and I've developed this kind of bear hunting addiction. I love bear hunting. And now looking back, I'm like, wait a minute, I could have been doing this all along. We had bears. Like, I didn't even know we had bears. But Clay really has kind of put that on the map and kind of made it famous for what it is. And that's, a lot of bears. They're going to be small, but a lot of bears and good terrain to hunt them in. And so it's just fascinating that it was on your list. That kind of surprises me.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
We're also on the
I
board for
grew up
bunny rabbits.
I grew up not bear hunting either until I moved to Western Montana. So I've been over here on the west side of the state for a little over 8 years now, and started bear hunting right away. Eastern part of Montana, no bears. Over here in the west, like lots of different bears, lots of opportunity. Like you said over there, they might not be the biggest bears out west, but you're going to see quite a few bears and have some cool opportunities to hunt in the spring and the fall. So when I moved out west in Montana here, I started hunting bears. So I'd say for the past 8 years or so, I really, really enjoy hunting them in the spring. Not much else going on. It's a really good excuse to get out and check out some cool country, see everything when it's greening up. It's like a really just beautiful time of the year to be out in the woods, and not much else going on. So
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's cool.
Where all have you bear hunted at?
So Montana, pretty much, most of the western part of Montana. I bear hunted Washington once and Oregon. I went with the folks over at Born and Raised and hunted bears over there with them. I didn't have a tag, but I was along for the camp and got to help pack out a couple bears. So that was super fun. Idaho, I have shot an Idaho bear last year, and I think that's pretty much it. So Montana, Idaho, Washington, Oregon.
You know what? Like when you start looking into like killing a big bear, like you think I'm going to go to Oregon or I'm going to go to Washington or Montana. The biggest bears are like North Carolina and Wisconsin and, like states that kind of you wouldn't think about being big bear states. But Wisconsin, dude, they kill absolute giants every year. I think Wisconsin has more Boone and Crockett black bears than anywhere else. And then North Carolina has like is as far as percentage wise of bears that are killed has the biggest. And it's just, you don't really think about those states. And that's why like North Carolina, PA, Wisconsin, those states, man, kind of get just looked over when you're talking about bears.
Yeah, no, they really do. And I mean, I've seen some really big bears in Montana, but they're very few and far between. I mean, to shoot it's
Yeah.
also interesting how some areas, like, people look at bears and they're like, oh, that's a 250-pound bear or a 300-pound bear, so they do it by weight. I've always been accustomed to judging a bear by like the length, so like nose to tail, like, oh, that's a 6-foot bear, that's a 5.5-foot bear. It's just kind of what I won't say grew up doing, because again, I didn't hunt bears until 8 years ago, but everybody in the area that I'm at, it's just kind of how we judge them. So I've came to like understand, okay, that's a 6-foot bear, which is a really nice bear in Montana. Like if you're shooting a 6-foot bear, that's a very, very nice bear. Now I have seen a couple in that 6.5 to even 7-foot range, but that's like one in the past 8 years, one or two in the past 8 years. And shoot, I don't know, couple hundred bears, like, and maybe a couple of them in that size range. So, yeah, they definitely do get big. There are some big ones around, but, a lot of that 5 to 5.5 style foot bear.
Yeah, for sure. And people think big bears are way big. Like for non-bear hunters, people think big bears are way bigger than they are. Like people think a big bear's 800 pounds, and you're like, no, dude, you're thinking way too big. Like a big bear's 400 pounds, and they're like, no,
Yeah.
dude. And like I've got a bear on the wall, and I'm like, well, how much do you think that bear weighed? And they're like, oh, at least 500 pounds. I'm like, there's a 200-pound bear. And they're like, no way, dude.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, like they're not massive. I mean, most of the bears that you're going to see coming through there are as big as a black lab, and you're looking for a 200-pound bear, and people are like, no way, dude. Like they just don't, and I blame Disney for all negative hunting, but, they've just automatically associated bears with being like these massive, well, they think of a black bear as they would a brown bear or a polar bear or, a grizzly, and a coastal brown bear. They think that's how big, the brown bears that you're going to see in Oklahoma are. And you're like, no, dude, you're thinking way outside of the realm of possibilities here.
Yeah, so that's a really good point. I mean, my best bear is like 6 foot 1 inch, so just over 6 foot. And I would say around that 215, 220 pound. And like, it's a nice bear, especially for out west. The biggest one I've been with was,
For
again,
sure.
we were in Oregon, and we killed one that they ended up weighing everything, like, all the meat and the hide and just everything. And I think it ended up being like 325 or something of that nature. And that was like an absolute, giant bear. We walked up on it, and it just was a next level animal for sure. So yeah, it's funny, you talk to guys, and just people who, they'll shoot their first bear, and then I'll be with them several times. Like they'll walk up and be like, oh, like that's a lot smaller than I thought it was. They're a very tough animal to judge in the field.
Oh my gosh. Well, I remember like my first bear hunt, my wife was with me, and we were in a camp with a bunch of hunters, and a hunter shot a little bear. And I mean a little bear, 25 pounds. And my wife was just distraught. She's like, why would he do that? And I'm like, well, sweetheart, he didn't mean to. And she's like, you can't mean to shoot one that small. And I'm like, I promise you, like, it's impossible to tell. Now he said, I thought I was shooting a small bear, but I did not think I was shooting a cub. Like, I didn't think it would have milk on its lips. And it's such a hard thing to tell. So, I didn't plan on this going this direction, but let's talk about field judging bears. What are you looking at in order to determine, is this a bear I want to shoot or not?
For me, like, the more bears that I see, the more it's just like, you kind of have to just like see bears to know. And it's a tough thing to do, because if you're not out there
100%.
seeing bears every year, but like I've seen enough now over the past 8 years that I have a pretty good understanding. Like I've certainly been fooled before and been like, hey, I think that bear's a 5.5-foot bear, 125 pounds, that type of bear. And then, somebody shoots it and we're like, okay, definitely overjudged that one a little bit or underjudged it. So like I've still been fooled, but the best way to do it is to see bears. Like the more that you see, the more that you start to understand. But for me, it's kind of it's a gut feeling, again, because I've seen so many of them. But like, how quickly do they move? Like a young bear, a small bear is going to be really quick. Especially, I've seen some bears climb trees, and like a young bear will just shoot up that tree like a rocket. And you immediately know, like, okay, that's a really small bear. That big bears don't move that quick. Now they can for sure, but like as a general rule of thumb, like a big bear is going to be a little bit more lethargic, and like it seems like it takes a little bit of effort to move up the mountain or to side hill, where like a small bear is just going to be running all over the place. Obviously, if you know, that's one nice thing about baiting. We can't bait here in Montana. I've never baited, but obviously, if you have a 55-gallon barrel and a bear comes in, you can use that as a size reference. But even like down logs, like across the canyon or something, you can kind of understand a little bit, like, okay, how big is that tree over there in relation to the bear standing next to it? Or, whatever. If you're rifle hunting, with today's rifle technology with the scopes, and whether you're MOA or mills, like that's a whole nother conversation, but essentially you can use that as like a ruler. Like that's all it is it's a ruler in your rifle scope reticle. And so if it's like, a 6-foot bear from nose to tail, like you can actually use that with the distance and start to gauge like how long that bear is with your rifle reticle and stuff. So there's some other tips and tricks, but like just as a general rule, the more you see, the easier it gets.
Yeah. Well, one time, and this echoes that, but one time Jim Shockey was talking about field judging bears, and he basically said, think about it like you as a person. Like, you're fat and out of shape now. Like, as funny as that might be, you're not like you were in high school. You're not lean and limber and fast and quick like you were in high school. You're fat and old and lazy. Same thing like you just said. Like, if a bear's bouncing around the mountains, you're like, is he big? No, he's probably small and young. That's why he's got so much energy. That's why he's so leaned out and fast and quick. And it's those bears that almost just look, like you said, lethargic, fat and lazy, and just, kind of walking through the woods. You're like, okay, maybe that's a big bear. But it also comes down a lot to just body size, man. Like, the big bears have a big blocky head and, big old beefy front shoulders. And, you can almost just, there's been deer coming in where I can't see the antlers for whatever reason. They're below a tree or whatever. Or maybe it's too dark and I'm looking through binoculars, but you can just tell by the body posture. Like, that's a big mature deer. It doesn't matter what the antlers say. That's a big old mature 7-year-old, 6.5-year-old deer just by his body posture. And the same is true with bears. But like you said, it takes looking at them. Like, it just takes watching them and learning about them and learning from them. And so that's why I tell everybody, like, when people ask me, hey, I'm going on my first bear hunt, what I need to do to start, figuring out how to judge these things, go to YouTube and search bear hunting and like just watch as many of those as you can. Now, still, it's not the same as learning from watching in person, but you can learn a lot just by watching the way those animals walk in and how they act. And, big old fat, lazy bears as opposed to small, wiry, energetic, young, thin bears. You'll learn it quicker than you think. So just start watching as much as you can. That way it's not like shell shock when you get there. That's my tip.
For sure.
So before we move on, I want to make mention of this. For those of you who don't know, you're about to learn. When you buy a new bear bow, you get a free 3-month Onyx subscription. All you've got to do is register that bow. Guys, registering your bow is something that not only is going to get you a free membership to Onyx, but it's also going to ensure your bow gets repaired when it needs repaired, things of the sort. You're also going to get a free 1-year membership to Pope and Young. All you've got to do is register that bow, and you're going to get an email with all these perks for discounted products, for free memberships to Onyx, for free memberships to Pope and Young. So even if you've bought a bow in the past, register that bow right now, and you'll still get all those benefits. Guys, make sure and do it. If you don't know, now you know. It's worth it. Just the free membership alone is worth the 10 minutes it's going to take you to register your bow, if that. Dylan, right now we're in the heat and the heart of prepping for season. So you talk Western hunts, and I'll talk whitetail hunts. But what are you doing right now? I mean, this is the month of nailing everything down and getting ready. So other than all your honeydews and making your boss happy so you can leave for a month, what are you doing right now to prep for hunting season?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and I think every year it's slightly different. This year's been a little bit more busy, chaotic than years have passed. So we have two young kids. We have one 4 month old right now. So this definitely like an adjustment in life and just trying to prioritize things. And you're constantly busy, with the newborn and things of that nature. So first and foremost, making sure like home life is good, family's good. Um, for prepping for season, which is coming up here real soon, like I think we've got 3 weeks until opener, maybe even less. At this point, I am really just trying to build confidence. Like I know my bow's dialed. I know my broadheads are shooting good. I know my bow's tuned. I know everything's ready. I'm not making any major adjustments this late into season. I'm certainly not trying to, you know, try out a new rest or anything like that. All my archery equipment and everything is dialed. Um, but I'm getting those reps in shooting broadheads and shooting with a pack on and shooting in hunting situations and not just like at a dot 30, 40, 50, 60 yards from me with level ground. I mean, I was just shooting last night above my house and I set up some 3D targets and even just shooting on those side hills, man. What you think is level, and then you take a peek at your level before you execute a shot, and it's like you weren't even close. So getting familiar with that and getting comfortable being uncomfortable in those shooting situations, I think far too often people just shoot at a range, and you can only shoot with what you got. So I totally understand that, but they'll only shoot at like a flat range with known yardages, 20 through 70 or whatever, 10-yard increments, not shooting those pin gap ones or whatever. And then you get into a field and all of a sudden you draw on an elk or whatever game you're hunting and you're on a side hill and your bubble is mashed to one side and maybe it's like one of those pin gap yardages or something. And so just really trying to hone in and get comfortable and have those reps. So if you do kind of lose it in that moment of truth, like muscle memory is there to take over.
Dude, what you just said is 100% gold. Like, I shoot dots on a target one time, and that's when I'm sighting in my bow. And then outside of that, I'm never shooting a dot on a target again. Like, so every year, once a year, I shoot dots, and that's to sight the bow in. After that, throw that bag target in the shed. You don't need it anymore. It does not offer you real life practice. And that's why so many dudes, if you're listening right now, you know exactly who I'm talking about because one of my buddies is struggling with this. That's why so many dudes can shoot the lights out of the place. I almost said out of the gym, but we're not playing basketball. They can shoot the lights out, then they go hunting and they freak out and can't shoot the animal because you can't pick a spot. You can't force yourself to aim at one hair on the deer and shoot the deer or the elk or the bear or whatever. You're used to shooting a dot. And that now that's separate from big buck fever. Like I get that. I get shaking in your boots and getting nervous. However, part of it boils down to you just shoot brown. You don't pick a spot and shoot at that spot. And so I actually and Bear has a very good relationship with Total Archery Challenge. So I'm not telling people not to go to Total Archery Challenge. Actually, the opposite. Go to Total Archery Challenge. But don't let that be the only time of the year that you push yourself out of your comfortable shooting. Like, so many people go to TAC and they're like, oh, dude, I'm such a better shooter now. Then they go right back home, put their bag target at 40 and start shooting their bag target again. Total Archery Challenge cannot be the only time that you push your limits. Total Archery Challenge cannot be the only time you shoot 74 yards up a hill through the trees. It can't be the only time. Now, I understand that not everybody lives where Dylan lives and they can go up and shoot, a 40-degree side hill with trees and all that stuff. I understand that. But guys, I live in the middle of town in Flat, Kansas. I've got 9 3D targets out, but I don't just put them out at 30 yards and start shooting the 3D target. Listen, it's illegal, and if I ever get seen, I'll probably get in trouble. I'll climb up on the roof of my house, put a 3D target over the privacy fence through a couple trees. That way I have to get it over the fence but under the limb and shoot it at 47 yards and make it, like you said, a pin gap number. Force yourself to be uncomfortable when you're shooting, because the elk is not going to come in at 20 yards and stand broadside and wait for you to range find it and shoot it. It's not going to happen ever. Now, if you're like you talked about baiting bears, if you're shooting bears over a barrel at 20 yards, that's good. If you're shooting deer over a corn pile at 20 yards, that's good. However, how many times has a deer hung up outside of the corn pile at 24 yards? And you're like, well, I've never shot a pin gap before. I don't know how to do that. You have to make yourself uncomfortable. And I love what you just said, dude.
Yeah, no, and I think a lot of it is building confidence too, because like I know that I know how to do those things, but I want to be confident when the time comes. So I remember several years ago, man, I was archery elk hunting, and I had one of those like thin neck gaiters, and I pulled it up over my face because I was like, I don't want to be seen, whatever. I remember I drew on a bull, and I had never shot with the face mask on. Essentially, it was just a face mask at that point. I never shot with one of those, and I remember I went to anchor, and my knuckle went behind my ear, and it felt so weird. And it was solely because I had never shot with one. Now, since then, I just choose to I'm not going to get seen. So I'm not that worried about it unless I'm being flat out dumb. I'm not going to get seen. Like, my face isn't going to get seen. So I don't use them anymore for that sole reason. I hate shooting with them. But if that was a concern of mine, then I would go home. I would have gone home and learned how to shoot with that comfortably. Because I remember, like, as little as that would sound, just that thing covering my ear, I had hundreds and hundreds of reps of just burying that knuckle right behind my earlobe. And now all of a sudden it feels weird. And my whole, like, from there, it's just like a snowball effect. Like, that's a very small thing that you should be able to overcome. But then you're constantly thinking about it. You're not like in tune with your shot process, and everything just like kind of falls apart from there. So, that's just one example. Shooting with a backpack on. I shot a few reps last night with a backpack on. I typically try and take it off if I can. Like, if I'm calling a bull in, I just am used to taking it off. But there's certainly times where, you might meet an elk on a trail or something, or one comes running in and your backpack's on. So what are you going to do? Not shoot that elk? Like, of course you are. So just having those reps of, okay, shooting with my pack on, shooting with it off, shooting it 5 yards with my pin set at 30. Like, what does that look like? It seems so like, oh, it's 5 yards, it wouldn't matter. But if your pin is set at 30 and you're shooting at 5 yards, which has happened to me before, like a 5-yard elk shot, what does that look like? Where do you hold? How finite do you have to be with it? Or can you get it in the wheelhouse and let it rip? So, like, just those things that might seem like common sense, but unless you do it and you know what to expect in that situation, you might freak out when that opportunity presents.
Yeah, for sure, dude. I had a guy one time, and I'm not going to name any names, but I heard the story one time. This professional deer hunter was on an elk hunt, and the guide said, "You've practiced shooting with your pack on, right?" And he said, "Dude, it's that doesn't affect anything here. That's no different." And he's like, "Okay, we're gonna shoot with your pack on before we go out." And he's like, "Whatever," and like just kind of fed up with it almost. He shoots the first shot, and the buckle that goes across your chest caught on his string, derailed his bow, and blew it up. And the guide is a good friend of mine. He's a nice guy, so he didn't but he was like, now, aren't we super glad that didn't happen with a giant bull out in front of you? Like, and it's those types of things or a binocular harness or gloves.
Yep.
Like, I've been there, you put gloves on because it gets freezing cold. And then you go to anchor and you're like, oh no, I can't feel my thumb, whatever. You have to practice all of those types of things. And it sounds silly and you look dumb. Like, you look stupid out in your backyard, full camoed out, and your neighbor's like, what are you doing? And you're like, don't worry about it, But you look dumb, but you have to push those limits of what's comfortable. That way, when you're in the woods, the uncomfortable is comfortable. And I mean, it's everything. We're not even talking about out west. In a tree stand, so many guys never practice shooting out of a tree stand. All year long, you practice at 30 yards on the ground, getting reps in. You never climb a tree and shoot out of the tree stand. And it's completely different to shoot out of a tree stand, especially if you get a 20-foot high, 25-foot high tree stand. It's completely different. And so many guys never practice that, or they never practice what happens if I'm sitting here facing this way, the trail I think the deer are going to come on, and they come on this trail, and I got to turn around the tree to shoot this deer. They never think about those things. So, guys, like, if there's one thing I can tell you for the next month and a half, season opens here in like 28 days here in Kansas. You've got 28 days. Start practicing the dumbest stuff you can think of. Shoot from your knees. Shoot out of a blind. Shoot with your back against a tree and you have to turn around and shoot, around the tree. Shoot out of a tree stand. If you're hunting out of a tree stand, shoot out of a stinking tree stand. My wife wanted a deck built, and I said, that's fine, as long as you'll let me have a shooting platform on that deck so I can climb up it and shoot off of it like I'm from a tree stand. She's like, cool. So I shoot from a tree stand every day, essentially a tree stand height. But, guys, you have to practice the uncomfortable, or when a deer steps out, man, it's going to suck. Like, dude, I missed a deer last year because I had practiced with my recurve all year long. Like, I was more confident with this thing than I've ever been. And I go on a hunt, and the guy's like, I'm going to put you in a ground blind. And I'm like, crap. I didn't practice that. But let's do it. And so, like, I'm going to shoot, and, like, I'm worried about my limb tip hitting the top of the blind. And so, like, it was just super uncomfortable. And I ended up blowing a shot at a nice deer. So, absolutely phenomenal tip, man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And yeah, just the weird stuff. Like you said, you probably do look and sound weird. Sound a little silly doing it. Like, even, have a diaphragm in your mouth if you're gonna, like, constantly, because I elk hunt solo a lot. And so I've had to stop bulls before, and you can whistle or make like a small sound with your mouth, but if you have a diaphragm in your mouth, like, shoot with one. It probably won't affect much, but who knows, you might draw and try and make a cow sound to stop a bull, and, like, just mentally you've never done it before, so it's easy, but you just got to do it. So that, I mean, as far as the shooting side of things, like, I would say that just practicing real life scenario stuff, just the strange 4-yard shots and through the trees at 10 yards, whatever. So all that stuff. And then really the rest is just, I don't know, trying to get as in shape as possible last minute, which is never a good thing, but I will personally always prioritize shooting my bow and, like, getting really confident with my gear, whether it be archery or rifle or anything of that nature. I personally think that tends to, like, being physically in shape is absolutely important, especially if you're in the mountains over here. Like, it's going to come up where, you have to get up there before those elk to get a shot opportunity or something. So it is really important, but at the end of the day, if you can't execute a shot and make it count, like, it doesn't really matter. So I tend to prioritize my shooting first, and then some of that stuff kind of falls as a secondary. It's still very important, but just not quite as important as making sure my bow is tuned and I'm confident and comfortable with all that stuff. And yeah, I mean, it's coming up soon, man. It's crazy. Like I said, I think 3 weeks and it's go time. So I also need to start packing and finding all my camo and all that good stuff, because I'm not very organized.
That's another thing. What are you doing? And you mentioned, which again is a great tip, like, my bow is set up, it's shooting good, I'm not touching it. But, like, as far as prepping your gear, is there anything for the Western hunter that you're gonna do, these 3 weeks leading up to make sure that your gear is ready to perform on the mountain every time?
Yeah, I mean, there are certain things, like, I'll oil my boots. I'm guessing I didn't do it after last season, so they're probably
What
Leather
boots do
boots
you
are
wear?
probably getting a little dry. So I've got a few different ones, but I really like the Schnees. Oh, I know the name of it, but it's not going to come to me. That's for
That's
sure.
fine. I just had to
Full
make
leather
sure that
boot.
being a Montana boy, you're wearing Schnees. That's how I made sure.
Yeah, yeah, and so I also have some Kennetreks, which is also another Montana company, like them. And so, yeah, just making sure those are good to go. I'll wash all my camo, but I don't really get bent out of shape about like scent-free stuff. Like I wash it in scent-free detergent just because like you might as well. But as far as like scent
Why add
control, man,
scent? Yeah.
I don't go crazy with it. Like I'm not out there trying to get my camo and my pack and everything like smelling like something it shouldn't in the woods, but also I'm kind of under the assumption like if you're going to get winded, you're going to get winded, and that stuff helps. Like it's not going to hurt, and that's why I do utilize it, but um I don't know. I think especially out west people can focus too much on that. Like if you get the wind right, you're in good shape. If you don't have the wind right, you're going to get smelled. And I don't know if there's any product out there as far as like a scent cover that's going to eliminate that. It might buy you a few more seconds or might buy you some time or whatever. It's not going to hurt, but um so I'll wash my clothes, nothing too crazy there, and really just organize so I know what is where. Cause like, what I take for my first archery elk hunt early September is not going to be what I'm going to need at the end of archery season in October and then rifle season and stuff. Like things change with the weather and like what pair of boots am I taking. So like just knowing that all that stuff is ready to go and where it is, will save a ton of time when you're in between hunts and trying to pack for the next one.
Yeah. Scent control is something that Western guys don't understand, and whitetail guys way over prioritize when they try to go on a Western hunt. What I mean by that is whitetail guys overthink their scent when they're in the woods. I mean, I remember my first couple like Western hunts. I was still trying to, dead downwind everything, and and I'm like, wait a second, I've been out here for 9 days and I haven't showered. There's no way I'm covering anything up. Like, so you just have to learn. Like when you head out west, scent is out the window. But I do think Western guys think tree stand guys are a little, over the top. Whereas, like, if I'm on a whitetail hunt, dude, I don't put fuel in the truck until, the night before. That way, when I'm in my camo, I'm not fueling up the truck. I mean, I don't eat on the way to the tree stand. I don't drink coffee on the way to the tree stand because I don't want to get scent on my body. And like you said, for all the people out there who are going to immediately email me and say, you can't cover your scent, there's always human scent. You're right. However, it can give me a few more seconds. And sometimes that's all I need. There's been times where a deer comes downwind and I'm like, crap. But I have that 5 seconds to squeeze off a shot before he busts me. And so, I understand. Yeah, I can't cover my scent, but I can mask it enough to give me that few extra seconds I need. Or to confuse them enough to where it's not they immediately blow and stomp and alert the entire woods. They might trot off and say there's something I don't like here, but I didn't set an alarm off in their head that they need to warn everything else in the woods that they're going to die if they come here. So absolutely, right now I'm focusing on scent. I'm covering my boots. I'm getting my clothes out and putting them in the ozone closet. I'm doing all of the typical like whitetail scent cover stuff that everybody's always doing. But you mentioned something about your broadheads, and that's something that I don't think people leading up to season prioritize enough. Like I sharpen my broadheads for a month leading up to season. When I get them out of the quiver, going to the woods, I want them. I don't want there to be any question in my mind that they are razor sharp. So here's what I do, just so everybody knows, because I do talk about shooting with your broadheads, just like you talked about. Shooting with your broadheads, pretty much when it turns August, I'm only shooting broadheads. Shoot broadheads that are the same as the ones you're going to be having in your quiver, but don't shoot the ones that are going to be in your quiver. I don't want to be slinging into foam or rocks or privacy fences if I miss. I don't want to be slinging into to the ground the arrows that I want to put into a deer in 3 weeks. So I'm shooting, bear razor heads right now. I'm practicing with those. But I have different bear razor heads that are razor sharp in my quiver, ready to go for season. So sharpen your broadheads, shoot your broadheads, and make sure everything is ready to go. Absolutely. I am also, and you might speak to this a little bit too, but right now I'm looking at everything that I'm taking in the woods. I'm looking at my bow, I'm looking at tree stands, climbing sticks, everything. How can I make this quieter? How can I make this setup quieter? So taking stealth tape and putting it around, the climbing sticks. That way when they touch together, they don't make a metal noise. Or, on the shelf of my bow, putting stealth tape. That way when you put an arrow in, it doesn't clink against the shelf of your bow. All of those types of things. I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, how can I make this quieter? So, everything. I mean, I have tried to make my leather boots quieter before. I mean, make everything quieter, make everything stealthier. Do you do any kind of that type of stuff? Any tips you've ever found to make something quieter for the mountains?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly do. A lot of that is like when I set up my bow, I make sure that it's like you said, I've got some felt or something on the shelf. So if my arrow does happen to rattle, uh, I've experimented with different things with rests because certain rests have been kind of noisy when I draw before. So I've experimented with things with that. All that stuff is pretty much on the bow side of things is set up ahead of time. Trying to think, on the other stuff, like I don't have a lot of like metal on metal like you do with climbing sticks and things of that nature. But if something is loud, I'm going to do anything I can to minimize that ahead of time. So like even last night, again, shooting with a pack, I realized like if I just draw normally, like, if I'm not trying to like slowly draw my bow, like if I just draw like normally I'm gonna shoot, my pack makes kind of like a not a screeching noise by any means. It's hard to describe, but like the material of the pack shifting on my shoulders when I make that motion, relatively quickly, like I heard that pretty loudly. So one of those things, it could be overthinking it, but like if there's an elk or deer or something under 30 yards and they're alert and it's really quiet, maybe you don't have wind to cover any sort of noise, and I draw my bow really quickly and I have my pack on, like I know now that it's going to make a noise like loud enough that last night I was like, I didn't love how loud that was. So just again, just putting those reps in with weird things. Now I know even if I, am just drawing and executing a shot that say they're looking the other way. Now I know if I have my pack on, like I'm maybe going to slow into that, draw just a little bit more to eliminate that noise. So not necessarily like, again, wrapping felt or anything on equipment, just knowing what that equipment's going to do for certain situations like that.
One thing that I get asked a lot, and since we're talking about making things quieter, I get asked a lot if deer hear my clicker on my recurve. So what a clicker is, when I come to full draw, it clicks, and that's the trigger that I know I'm at 28 inches every time I draw my recurve. I get asked, do deer hear that clicker? So if you want to shoot a clicker in the woods, what I do is I take that entire clicker apart and I put duct tape around every piece of that clicker. It's going to help mute that sound. I've actually even a couple times I've undented the dent in the clicker, the part that makes it click, so much so that you almost just feel it in the string popping rather than hearing it. But no, I mean, I've shot deer at 12 yards with a clicker, and it does. Once you've muted the clicker, if you shoot it straight out of the box, yeah, you're 100% going to spook them. But once you've muted that enough with duct tape and bending out the dent a little bit more, 100% they won't hear it. So I got like 3 emails on that this week after a picture of my bow. So no, they won't hear it if you'll mute that clicker just a little bit.
I'm shooting a new release this year, a new release that has, so it's still, it's a wrist strap, and it's like a normal just release, but like it has a click in it. So it's not like a tension or anything like that, but it's almost like the way I would describe it is almost like a 2-stage trigger. If anybody's familiar with that with a rifle, where it's like you take up the slack and then from there it's like, okay, now we're going. So like it's kind of the same thing with my release where like you'll get to the click and then okay, here we go, like for the rest of your shot. So one of my things this year, and I've just never shot with one of those. I'm guessing it's similar to what you're describing with your recurve and a clicker, because I have heard those, but it's one of those things when I'm just playing with it here, it's not loud at all. But when it's on that string and I do it, like it just amplifies the sound for some reason. So I'm slightly nervous about that. I have talked to several people who have shot this release and they're like, man, nothing's ever spooked. But I think it really just depends. Again, is there wind? Is there grass moving? Is there any type of, sound that's going to cover that? Or is it like
For sure.
dead calm? Because if it's dead calm and there's, a mule deer or an antelope or an elk at, again, I don't think past 30 yards is going to be an issue. But if there's something standing at 14 yards and I hear, get to that click, like, is that going to cause that animal to look or to blow up or anything of that nature? So that's one thing that I don't think I'll know until I'm out in the field. But I've heard it's not an issue, but it's kind of in the back of my mind.
What release is that, if you don't mind me asking?
So it's a Scott. Actually, I have the package right in front of me here. It is a Scott Archery Verge. So it's a wrist release, but it's got 2 fingers. So like instead of just wrapping one finger around it, it does have 2, which is nice. And yeah, I mean it's a really nice release. Joel Turner with Shot IQ kind of turned me on to it. I was shooting with him and just kind of going through his process and everything. Yeah. And so he's the one who turned me on to it
with that release. But he didn't say like it. I don't know if I missed it, but I saw him doing a video with that release, and I'm like, that's really stinking cool. And so when you said that, I'm like, I wonder if it was the same release, and so cool. I'll have to go check that out. Scott Verge, very cool.
Yeah, I like it.
Now, what are you doing? What are you doing, scouting wise? Digital scouting wise, how are you utilizing Onyx at this point? Not only boots on the ground scouting, but how are you utilizing Onyx to get ready for hunting?
For sure. So boots on the ground scouting, I haven't done any this year. Let's just put it that way. Again, it's, every year's different. Like
that's good.
Some years when I have time, like I absolutely will. We have a 4-month-old right now that hasn't been the easiest of babies. So it's kind of all hands on deck and making sure things are good at home. And so like, I haven't had a weekend to get away and go hike the mountains. That being said, it really just depends. Like if I'm hunting a new area, maybe I've got a new permit or something that I've never stepped foot in that area or that mountain range or that unit, I'm for sure going to prioritize boots on the ground scouting. I am hunting areas this year that I'm very familiar with. I'm going back to where I shot a bull last year. I've hunted that area for 3 years. Like, I mean, I just kind of know it like the back of my hand. Now, obviously, there's always more to learn and to gather by being in that country. But I routinely go shed hunt it. I try to get there kind of all year round just to go check out some of those new areas. So I'm not really bent out of shape about not being able to get there and scout, because also, I'd be scouting for cows, but I know generally like what the elk like to do there. I know opening day or the first day I'm able to go hunt where I want to sit, like all that's kind of already been in the back of my mind. So I'm not too worried about boots on the ground. That said, like I'm constantly looking at maps, even in areas that I've hunted. One of the things, now not elk here, but mule deer focused, I remember a few years ago, one of the things that really kind of was like an aha moment to me was I've hunted a particular piece of property for mule deer for like 10, 12 years. Like one of those places you just feel like, like there's a lot of acreage, giant different parts of the the property, and like, it's not like I'm hunting my back 40, so I'm always moving around, but just I know where to sit in glass. I know where I typically see bucks. Like, I know this country really well. So in my mind, I always was like, I don't really need to e-scout that because I know it. Like, I know where I'm going to go. I know where the road systems, whatever. Well, a few years, like 2 or 3 years ago, I think three years ago, I think out of like boredom or something, I was probably doing something for work, and I needed to like walk through like an e-scouting process. Well, I ended up like e-scouting this same property that I've hunted for years and years. And one thing that I learned is like by e-scouting it, even if you know it, like I hunted that place so differently that year, and I shot my best buck in like a little hole on that property that I've never stepped foot in. So one of the things that I personally did is I turned on the topo layer, and I was trying to the most efficiently and effective possible, like cover country on this area. So like I'll make 5 to 8 mile hiking loops in this, but if you just aimlessly go up and down draws and whatever, like you're burning yourself out, you're not seeing things properly. So I flipped on the topo layer, and what I would do is I would draw the ridge lines, all of the ridge lines out. So like that was step one for me. If it was like a ridge line, I would just draw all of those out with one color. And then I went to another color and was like, okay, if I hike down this ridge line, where would be good glassing points off either side? Not areas where I have to pick up and hike like 2 miles to a different glassing point. Go 50, 100 yards, sit on the other side of the ridge, and glass whole new country. So I started to kind of map those out. And then what I did is I started connecting those ridge systems. So I might hike all the way down one ridge system, glass on like 6 different spots, and then just bounce over to the other ridge and hike that back and glass all new country. So, just it seemed like before I e-scouted it, again, that I knew this area like the back of my hand. Wasn't something I needed to look at maps because I've been there. But after figuring that out, what I learned hunting it that season was I was way more efficient and effective in the field. Like I knew where I was going to go. I knew the path I was going to hike. I knew where I was going to glass. Now, of course, I'd get to like a glassing point where I'd marked on my phone and been like, I don't love how it looks in person, right? But then you go another 20 yards and you're like, oh, it really opened up on this side of this,
Yeah.
cluster of trees. Sit down, move that glassing point. And so like I was so much more efficient. And when that plan wouldn't work, I'd be like, sweet, I know exactly what I'm going to do after this because I e-scouted it. So even areas that really well, if you take the time and e-scout, like I guarantee it's going to change the way you hunt it.
Yeah, and that's one thing, man, that like, and I'm a big preacher of like, so some guys fall into the rut of like, oh man, even if it is your back 40, I've hunted this for 20 years, man, and there's no need to scout. Like, you don't know what's changed. Like, unless you get boots on the ground and go out and look, you don't know what's changed. And so now, I'm kind of switching. Like I said, you'll cover Western, I'll cover Whitetail, but like, man, you got to go out and get boots on the ground on these properties. You have to, because they're just last year I was hunting a pinch point, and for the last however many years, this has been the perfect pinch point, dude. A cliff comes right up against a river, so if you hang a tree stand on top of the cliff, they're pinching between the river and the cliff. Like, it's a perfect pinch point to hunt. Well, a tree fell down, like 300 yards up the cliff, so deer couldn't get through there anymore. So had I just walked in and said, man, dude, I'm ready to go hunt, the cliff stand, and sat there and hunted, I would have never seen deer because they were completely blocked from using that transition now. So you never know what's going to change on your property. You never know, that a creek, now has a new washout and is going a different direction now. I mean, you just never know those types of things. You have to constantly be looking at the ground. How have things changed? What has been added? What's been taken away? My grandparents' place a few years ago, it's like, oh crap, the neighbor tore down 12 acres of woods to build a new barn. And, I got to hunt this completely different now because the deer are going to be coming and using that piece to get to our piece completely different. So you've got to look at those types of things and understand what can cause deer to change and adapt along with them. Now, what are you what kind of so you pull up Onyx. You're going on a mule deer, elk hunt, whatever. You pull up Onyx. What kind of terrain features are you looking for? I mean, I know you mentioned ridge lines, but say this isn't the spot that you've hunted since you were a kid, and this is a new spot. You don't know where you're going. You got to e-scout it to get ready. What kind of terrain features are you looking for to find the elk?
Yeah, that's the question. I mean, we get it all the time, and we do a lot of e-scouting content videos and stuff, and it's always the question, what are you looking for? And it's a tough one to answer. It's kind of the same as the statement we had in the beginning with bears. You got to get out there and see bears to be able to judge bears. And that's, where does the cart or the horse come first? Like, you got to get out there and do it. So me having like had some success in the elk woods, like I know generally what looks like elky terrain. So then I can look for that on the map, right? Like it's one of those things, it's tough to describe, but if you're out there and you find elk, you're like, oh, there was elk in this area. Well, look at the map. What does that look like? I don't care if you go to Colorado, try and find something similar, like rolling mountains, meadows. Like, people have this idea in their mind of what elk country looks like. Sometimes it's right, sometimes it's not. But if I'm e-scouting like a complete brand new unit, it sounds basic, but really like it comes down to elk need food, cover, water. Like they need, they're going to get away from pressure. But also people overlook that. People, I think, are like, oh, I'll start hunting elk when I'm 3 or 4 miles in, because certainly there's not going to be a bunch of bulls hanging out right by a trailhead. That's not really true. Like I've been late to a trailhead before and had bulls. There's a whole lot of vehicle activity there. People are probably miles down the trail thinking they had to get ahead of it. And there's 2 bulls bugling their heads off, 75 yards from the trailhead. So sometimes those overlooked spots, like check them out, but food, water, cover, there's got to be water in the area somewhere. Like elk will travel pretty far to go water and come back. It's crazy what they'll do. I mean, they'll drop, thousands of feet in elevation, hit water if there's better feed down there in the evenings, and then climb thousands of, 2,000-3,000 feet again to go bed. It's pretty crazy when you watch them do it. It's like, there's got to be more effective ways of doing it, but apparently like dropping that elevation and hitting that alfalfa field or a hay field or whatever feed down there is like worth their time. Otherwise they wouldn't be doing it. So again, like there's a lot of things, food, water, cover, and being in elk country and like understanding, having had some success in finding elk and emulating that is really what I go to.
Your brain takes more mental notes than you give it credit for. And what I mean by that is like, there's times where you're sitting there and you're like, dude, it's about to happen. Like, I don't know why, but like they're coming. Like it's here. And it's because over the past 15 years of elk hunting or deer hunting or whatever, your brain has been taking mental notes of what was going on or what it felt like or what it looked like when it did happen, And so when you roll up into that place where it's like, man, this just looks really good, it's because your brain has been telling you all these times, you've been taking mental data as far as, oh, crud, a bean field meets a river here. Like, and you've been taking those types of things into your mind. So then when you get to it, it's like, this just seems right. I don't know why. Well, it's because over the 15 years of doing it, you've just started building that repertoire and figuring out like, this is the stuff that deer like. They like all these dropping acorns that I just walked into. They like when all these persimmons are dropping. They like, that's the type of thing that your brain is making mental note of. And like, so don't ever overthink it either. Like, last year I roll up into Idaho and we're chasing bears and we just passed this spot. I'm like, hold on, there's bears in there. Like that just looks, that's it, And so we get out and sure enough, we find bears. Like, so sometimes we way overthink what we're doing, but just let your gut tell you those things. Like let your mind recall all the times you've seen bears and what they were doing and where they were at. And then when it goes, hey, that's where the bears are, get out and go look. Like, don't well, on the map, dude, it looks like up here is better. Man, your gut just told you there's bears out there. Get out and go check it out, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure. And as far as like the e-scouting stuff goes, like we just did a really good extensive course with Cody Rich. He did a course for us that's live on YouTube, free for anybody to find, and it's really e-scouting for elk specifically, but I mean any western big game, it's going to give a lot of really good tips for. You can take what he's saying for elk specifically and just tweak it slightly for deer, antelope, whatever. But I would urge people to check that out as far as like how to go about start to finish. Okay, like brand new spot. I've never hunted elk before. What am I looking for? What am I doing? It's a hour and a half, 2 hour long course with 4 videos. Like there's a lot of really good knowledge in there. I would definitely tell people to go check it out.
What's it called? I'm on your YouTube channel now.
So yeah, I mean it would be under
How to
just
e-scout
recently
using Onyx.
uploaded, probably. Yeah, exactly. And so it's a 4-part series. There's an introduction and then 4 videos. And it's not just like it is e-scouting, but it's also Cody goes into how to build like a hunt package. So like that and what he's looking for. So a lot of it is map related, but it's really start to finish like, hey, I want to go hunt elk. Where do I start? What do I do? So from like you have a tag, you need a spot, again, a lot of it's going to focus on the maps and the tools that we have to be most effective with e-scouting. But a lot of it's just like talking about what you're looking for. Like what do you do?
Yeah, for sure, man. No, so everybody, if you just go to the Onyx channel and go to scroll down like 3 rows, you're gonna find that. And so that's definitely something you should start looking into. I'm looking at your now I'm just going through videos. You need to find somebody better than the hunting public to do that. I'm just kidding. You got to give them a hard time anytime you can, for sure.
Oh yeah. Yep. Good dudes.
No, and that's why going back to my first point, guys, this is why I love Onyx. Like it's so much more than just a digital map that helps you hunt. I like people who are going to give me information to make me better. So, I like shopping at Lancaster because they give me information that I need year round. And so then when it's time to buy something, I want to shop from who's giving me information. So I like people who are informative. I like Joel Turner. I like Tom Klum. I like people who give me information, who are knowledgeable and resourceful and help me. So guys, definitely 100% check out Onyx's YouTube for that. Not only that series, but the video that was put out with the hunting public was how to find new hunting ground for whitetails. Everybody needs new hunting ground for whitetails, so check it out. But what is I ask everybody for a hunting 101 field note. In other words, just a quick tip or trick that I can put in my back pocket and make myself a better hunter with. What do you got for us?
Yeah, throw me on the spot there. There's a few that I could probably go with, but one, I mean, obviously I work at Onyx. I'm gonna do something mapping related. One thing that people constantly overlook, well, 2 things. The first one's so simple, I'm not gonna make this my tip, but save your maps for offline use. Like even if you have cell service, make sure you're saving those maps for offline use. The most common still to this day issue that we have that customers have is they're like, I forgot to save a map. So number one, like, again, that's not like a revolutionary thing, but just make sure you're saving those maps and downloading them. So when you don't have cell service, you can still use your maps. But the thing I would say is like, especially out West, far too often, like, let's just say we've been talking bear hunting. So I'll use that as an example, but this is literally anything. Maybe you've been up bear hunting and sitting there for 4 hours in the same spot glassing. You had that the idea like there's got to be bears in this drainage. They got to come out and feed. At some point, I'm going to see them. You've been up there glassing 4 hours. Your eyes are tired from looking. You finally spot that bear, and you're like, heck yes, there it is. Let's go. Grab your pack, grab your bow, grab your rifle, whatever you're hunting with, and start getting after it, trying to put a stalk. The most common thing that I see, and again, this is with mule deer, elk, anything, but especially spot and stalk, is you finally find what you're looking for, and you're like, yep, let's go get after it. You get halfway over there and you're like, I don't know if I'm 50 yards away from where that bear was or 500. Like, everything looks different. You have no idea where you're at. So like, from a mapping tip that I think is really worthwhile is, if and when you do see that bear, or again, bedded elk, bedded mule deer, antelope, whatever it is, it doesn't take more than 2 minutes, but take 2 minutes, collect your thoughts, analyze the situation. Is that bear cruising? Like, there's been times where, this happened this spring. I saw a bear that was just like, it was a boar clearly cruising country looking for a hot sow. I'm like, by the time we get over there, that bear could be 2 miles away, man. Like, he's not hanging out eating. Like, he is cruising. His head is down. Like, he is just moving. There's no sense going over there unless we see him hanging out in that area. So analyze it for that. Like, what is that animal doing? Does it make sense to go over there and stalk it? But more importantly, like, pull out your phone. If you're with a buddy, have them pull out theirs too and do the same exercise, and then compare notes. Like, okay, I'm going to range it. Maybe it's like 750 yards. So I'm looking on my map. I'm using like the distance tool to say like, okay, there's 750 yards on my map. It's got to be that first. So there's like 2 finger ridges. It's on the second one. So I find that on my map and really pinpoint exactly where that animal is and mark that waypoint before you lose elevation, before you lose visual sight of that animal. Because again, far too often you'll get over there and be like, everything looks way different. I have no idea where this animal is, and I'm only going to screw stuff up at this point. So mark that location, double verify it again, range it, check the range from the waypoint to yourself, make sure that makes sense, computes out. And then also, if your hunting buddy does the same thing, compare notes, be like, hey, here's exactly where I think that bull bugled from, or here's exactly where I think that bear is. And you'll look at them and you'll either say, yep, that checks out. You thought the same thing. Like, we might be 5-10 yards off, whatever. Or like, if you're like a ridge off, then you need to sit and have that conversation, be like, why are we off here? Who's right, before we go? Because it's, even if it takes 10 minutes, like, that 10 minutes is going to be invaluable by the time you go over there. You're, saving a ton of time, energy, and just being way more efficient.
Yeah, for sure. And that's something that, like, so many people just automatically assume or rush into it and start going. Then they're like, where's the bear at? Dude, it was gone 400 yards ago. Like, when you started walking, it was already gone, and that's something, dude, I had to learn the hard way, because the first couple times you're gung-ho, and every animal you see, you're like, let's chase after it. But if you just slow down and give yourself time, Now, I want to ask you this too. For that guy who's headed out west, and this kind of goes in line with your tip, if you range an animal and it says 750 yards, that does not mean it's a 750-yard walk for you to get there. There's been times I've ranged a bear and it's like, it's 750 yards and it takes you 2.5 miles to get there. Like, so is there a way, do you utilize any kind of tools to figure out, okay, how long is it actually going to take me distance-wise and time-wise to walk to the point I want to get to?
Not necessarily. I mean, I will use the map as a judge, as an estimate. But yeah, to that point, my biggest bear that I killed, like, we spotted that bear, and I think it was like a mile away, it was like a mile as a crow flies. And the track, like, it took us like 5 hours to get over to where that bear was. Luckily, it was early in the spring and he wasn't moving much. But like, we were in it, like, I can't remember exactly, like 5 miles, I think, because like, you can drop down 2,000 feet, climb 2,000 feet, drop 1,000, climb 1,000, do that over and over, and you're going to be burnt out. Or like, we found an old logging road, so we stayed at Contour on the same elevation, but then you ended up doing this in and out of finger ridges. So like, it was a mile to the bear, but it was like something around 5 miles of hiking before we even got to the bear. So, I mean, I'll look at the map and I will analyze it, but I'm not really pulling out tools and like saying, oh, it's exactly going to take us 2.5 hours to get there. I'm looking at, okay, how much elevation are we going to drop? How much are we going to gain? What contour, like, are we going to have to do that where we're going in and out of ridges, or are we just going straight at that animal? and kind of just come up with like a good estimated guess. Now you can track yourself. So like once you start, you know, hit that tracker, and then you can periodically check it and be like, okay, we've been hiking for 45 minutes. Here on the map is exactly where we started. Here's where we're at. Here's that waypoint to that animal. And then it gives you a really good understanding of like, okay, we're about halfway there. So like another 45 minutes, or, you know, you don't have to wait till you're halfway there to do it. Check it 20 minutes in or 10 minutes into your hike and say like, okay, we've traveled, I don't know, half a mile in this amount of time, or, you know, even 400 yards in this amount of time. Like there might be a bunch of blowdown and elevation change that you're doing, and really just use that to be like, man, this is going to take us a long time to get over there, or yeah, another 15 minutes we should be ready to find that animal and set up for a shot.
Yeah. Now, do you do a lot of whitetail hunting? I mean, have you been whitetail hunting quite a bit?
So in eastern Montana, like Montana in general, you get a deer tag. I can shoot a mule deer or a whitetail. I've shot 5 or 6 whitetail bucks, mostly mule deer bucks. Shot a couple whitetails with a bow, several with a rifle. So I it's a mix. Like I'm hunting deer in Montana. I'm not necessarily hunting whitetail or mule deer. Like, I mean, one of my best whitetail bucks sitting right here, like I was mule deer hunting. It was up above some egg land down on a river, but I was up in the hills hunting mule deer, and that whitetail came strolling up through the draw. So like I have hunted whitetail for sure, but I'm not like hanging tree stands, setting trail cameras, that, you know, that type of whitetail hunting.
You're not a Midwest whitetail hunter. No, I ask
No.
because there are things that I utilize Onyx for, you know, kind of in the same sense. You know, you look at a piece of ground in Kansas and you're like, dude, you walk 400 yards to your tree stand. Like, so what? And I'm like, you're right. But leading up to the to season, what I want to do is know where I want to park and know where the tree stand is. And I want to walk the quietest route that I can find. And I want to mark that. I want to make a path on the Onyx app, the quietest path to get in and out of that tree stand. Because what happens is at 4 a.m. in the morning when it's pitch black, you know, there's places where if you're 10 yards off, all of a sudden you got to climb a tree to get across, you know, to get to it. Or you got to go through a sandy bank and you're going to make a lot of noise. So in the pitch black, if it's, you know, pitch black and you miss that trail by, you know, 5 yards even, you can turn out to make a whole lot of noise. So by walking the trail that you're going to be using to go in and out of your tree stand from, then in the morning, you can look at your Onyx app and you can walk that trail and know I am on the quietest, most efficient route to get to that tree stand. So that's something that I do leading up to season with the Onyx app to ensure that I'm getting there more effectively and quieter than any other way. Now, is there anything like as far as using digital maps? When you go out and get boots on the ground, what does what you find and what you see, how does that correlate with what's on your map? And what I mean by that is, what all are you wanting to mark to say, this is what I see, this is what I found? You know, of course, for whitetail guys, it's, okay, I found a bed here, I found a scrape here, I found, you know, you want to mark those things. So as far as Western hunting, you go out and get boots on the ground. What all are you wanting to mark? That way you remember and can go right back to that point.
For sure. A lot of it for me is good glassing points. So like if I am hiking a ridge system and I find a really good glassing point where I can like cover a lot of country with my eyes instead of needing to hike 3 or 4 more miles, like I will for sure mark good glassing points. So, you know, just like you want to be in your tree stand, like navigate there in the dark, like a lot of times, like, you know, you might, obviously you've got a headlamp or whatever you need to get in there, but you can also follow a track on your phone that you did ahead of time in the dark, or share that with somebody who's never been there. I'm marking glassing points because I might want to be at that glassing point 10 minutes before it is light. So I know exactly where I'm going. I'm not like sitting there in the dark like, man, is this it? Or is it another 100 yards down this ridge? I didn't mark it. So I'm marking good glassing points. I'm still marking like water, good water sources, not necessarily to hunt those water sources. Like, sit on them per se, but like, okay, if I know where, okay, there's a pond over here that I have marked, there's a cattle stock tank over here that I've marked, and there's maybe a creek over here. Like, if I glass up a bull midday and he's by himself and he's covering country, I will immediately pull up my phone and be like, where could he be heading right now? It's middle of the day, his cows are bedded. He is heading in this direction. There is a pond down there about a mile ahead of him. Like, if I have that stuff marked, then I go, I bet he's going to water. He, is laying down with his cows. He knows where his cows are. He feels safe to get up. He's going to go water, come right back to his cows. Maybe I can't get in front of him to cut him off, but I will sit there, find high ground, make sure he's still going to that pond, and be in a spot to transition or ambush him on the way in between. So it's like, I know where he came from. If he's a herd bull, I guarantee he's got cows over there if it's the right time of year. I know where he's going. Where can I put myself on his way back to get the wind right and have him come within shooting range? So, if you mark those things ahead of time, like, you can utilize them. Otherwise, I'm like, man, I don't know where that bull's going. Like, I don't know if there's water over there. I don't know what's going on. So I'm still marking good water, good food, all things of that nature. But again, a lot of it's like glassing points and my own track in and out of areas. So in the dark, I can just follow a track. I'm not wondering, hey, if I keep going on this path, is that correct? Or, where I need to go.
Yeah. And that, I once told a guy to mark his glassing points before he went. He's like, yeah, I've got 3 marked, 3 really good ones. I'm like, no, you need 20, you need 15. He's like, no, dude, these are 3 really good glassing points. They look like really good glassing points. And I'm like, okay. Well, sure enough, he gets to the first one. He's like, this isn't what I thought it was. Got to move on. Gets to the second one. This is decent. Glasses for a while. Gets to third. He's done with all 3 glassing points on day 1 of a 10-day hunt. So you can never have too many glassing points pinned down and marked down to where you think, man, this is really going to give me an advantage to see a whole lot of ground and cover a lot with, my spotter or whatever. So have as many glassing points as you can marked down and pinned down. That way, when you get there, it's not like, okay, well, I burned through all of my good idea for glassing points in, the first day. So you can never have too many of those. Same with whitetail hunting. You can never have too many observation stands. People think like, well, I have to be in and amongst the deer to kill them. You're right. But if you pull out and sit on top of a grain silo for 2 days and see where all they're coming from and where all they're going to, dude, it will change the success of your season in a hurry. But a lot of times people don't want to burn a hunting day. And, I get that. It's hard to do sometimes. But those pulling out and observation sets, consider it like glassing for elk hunting. Do I immediately jump in there and go chase the deer? No. But the next day, I know where they're coming from and I know where they're going. I can sneak in and hang a tree stand or climb up with a saddle, whatever. And I've become a whole lot more successful. So there's a lot of crossover that a lot of guys don't utilize. They think it's 2 complete different games. There's a lot of crossover. And if we would learn to utilize all of the tools in our bag, we'd be a lot more successful.
For sure.
I'm very picky about the nonprofits that I will support. I look into them a lot. I don't just jump in and support anybody that says we're a nonprofit. I met a friend of mine. His name is Jim Mesh, and he runs a memorial fund, a scholarship in his brother's name, the John V. Mesh Memorial Scholarship. And what they do, they have a passion for getting kids involved in outdoors. So they host these events around the country to get kids introduced to hunting, but also to raise money for their scholarship fund, which is the John V. Mesh Scholarship. And what that is that's a scholarship that if any student is going into a field of conservation study, they can apply for this scholarship. And it's a substantial scholarship. That's another thing. If they say we're a nonprofit and we do all this and then they give, $1,000 scholarship, then you're like, well, where does the rest of the money go? But they give a very substantial scholarship to a student every year looking to go into a conservation field of study. So guys, maybe you are a student and you're studying some field of conservation. I would encourage you to apply for the John V. Mesh Memorial Scholarship. But also, I would encourage you, everybody, to support this nonprofit scholarship fund, whether it's through a one-time donation, a monthly donation, or attending one of their events, or buying one of the things they have on auction at these events. Support a company that's supporting our rights as hunters by furthering our conservation efforts by supporting students who are going into a conservation field of study. Guys, go check out the John V. Mesh Memorial Scholarship at johnvmesh.org. Dylan, man, thank you so much for coming on. I greatly appreciate it. Guys, if you've bought a bow in the past, or if you're looking at buying a new bow, any bow that you buy from Bear Archery is going to get you that free 3-month subscription to Onyx. So make sure and check out the Onyx subscription. If you just bought a bow, go register that and get it. It's completely free, and you're going to fall in love with it, I promise. Guys, thank you so much for listening. You guys have a fantastic week.